Now, I'm getting really tired of all the get-rich-quick schemes out there and everyone promoting and selling their new potion on how you can make money. Now, having suffered from the shiny object syndrome for years and losing tens of thousands of dollars as a 9-time failed entrepreneur, I've been on a mission to search for proven business models that have verifiable success. And I think I may have found one. But my fascination with this business started in an unusual place. So in 2015, my wife and I had just moved to California. So I was getting in the turn lane to go to the grocery store and I spotted the car I had wanted for a long time but could not afford at the time. It was a Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT, which is a 475 horsepower Jeep that sounds like an absolute beast. Now, it turns out the guy driving it was going to the same store as me, so I strategically pulled up a couple cars down from him so I could talk to him about his ride. Now, we hit it off pretty quickly and we actually became friends. So a couple months in, we were hanging out, and after a few drinks, he told me that him and his wife had made $5 million in their business the year before. Hold on, what? First off, you just made $5 million? And second of all, why are you only driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT? Now look, contrary to your favorite Instagram guru, not all wealthy people blow their money on Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces. So what business was he in that he built into a multiple 7-figure-a-year business? It's of course the sexy and super interesting world of fire and water restoration. Okay, maybe you picked up on my sarcasm there because it's obviously not a sexy business. But look, do you want a business that looks cool or sexy, or do you want a business that makes a lot of money? Yeah, I don't know, both. But if I had to choose, I'd pick non-sexy, makes a lot of money, over sexy, doesn't make money. So when I recently got the chance to hang out with a friend of mine, Dan Claps, who recently co-founded a company called Voda Cleaning and Restoration, I was intrigued and I wanted to learn more about it. Now, specifically, I wanted to know, number one, how much money can I make with this business? Number two, what would my startup cost be? And number three, what's the history of the business? And basically, is it legit? Look, after getting sucked into a few MLMs, ebook publishing, and get-rich-quick schemes in my early 20s, I only want legit and proven. So before we break down any numbers, how does this business actually work? I already told you that this is a fire and water restoration business, but what does that mean exactly? And how do they make money? Well, first, think water damage. All right, so let's say that you're a psychopath and live somewhere that gets really, really cold, like Omaha, Nebraska. And it's the wintertime and the temperature goes below freezing and your pipes freeze and then they burst. That sucks. Or here's one thing that happened to me twice now. Rewind to 2012, I owned a rental property and I got a call from my tenant. Yeah, so the hot water heater broke and dumped out water everywhere in the basement. The basement was carpeted, so yeah, that stunk, literally. Or your washing machine overflows, or a storm hits and your roof had a leak and you didn't know, or you have a damaged pipe that leaks, and so on and so on and so on. That's just the beginning. When I lived in California, it rained for the first time in like a year, and it turned out we had a broken tile on our roof. The water seeped through into the house, and they had to rip open the walls, and then when they did, they found mold, because I guess it was there for years before we had even bought the house. It was a total pain. Then the bathtub was leaking in our guest house, and then we rented the house out and it started dripping water literally through the downstairs ceiling. So this is a pain point for me. And we aren't talking about like an MLM business peddling overpriced vitamins or protein shakes here. This business is solving real pain in the butt problems. So going back to Dan, the co-founder, he spent 8 years in the business brokerage and franchise space, and after selling one of his companies, he decided on the path to become a franchisor. Well, what's a franchisor? Most people know what a franchisee is. In simple terms, it's a franchise owner, someone who owns an individual franchise. And while most people automatically think food, there are literally thousands of non-food franchises all over the country. Now, a franchisor is the actual brand that gives out the rights to a franchisee to own and operate the business. So check this out. What Dan did was pretty genius. He decided he wanted to buy an existing business that was not a franchise, but that already have a proven track record of success, and then franchise the business to provide other people like you and me the opportunity to use that same exact business model to make money with it. So maybe owning a franchise isn't the right path for you, but one day you could become a franchisor. And some of these franchise companies can sell for tens of millions of dollars once they're built up. It's pretty cool. So Dan contacted hundreds of companies and found a really successful restoration company that had been around for almost 15 years. The owner had built a really great business. They had over 800 five-star reviews on Google. And so what Dan did is he rebranded the business and franchised it. Pretty genius, actually. So I sat down with Dan and I wanted to know, where did you get the idea to start Voda? Because there were so many other things you could have done. You had just sold the business. This is probably one of the harder paths that you could have taken. So like, why start a restoration company?
A glutton for punishment, pain. No, it's a very rewarding business to be in, but no one wakes up thinking I want to own a restoration business. Me the most. I'm probably one of the least handy people you may meet. But what I learned was the business model was extremely strong. I come from a background in lead generation in the franchise space, and I had learned and met some of the best players in the space. And so what happened was, before choosing an industry, we knew we wanted to be a franchisor. I love helping people become a business owner. And so in my 10 years in franchising, it seemed like a natural progression to be able to not only help people buy a franchise, but then work with them ongoing to, run through milestones. Our vision in Franchise Playbook or our mission really, is to empower entrepreneurs to think bigger. And so franchising allows me to do that. When we assembled the team at the franchise company, we worked together and made a playbook on industries that we might like. But what happened was everything had a pro and a con. And so instead of thinking about an industry, my team and I, just with all different backgrounds, we created a list of what we wanted out of a business. I can go through those, but that checklist, restoration, just hit every one of them.
All right, so let's talk about his criteria, and then we'll break down the numbers to the business about how much money it makes and how it all works. So he had a list of 7 things to check off before narrowing down to this specific industry. So the first thing is that it's a need and not a want. It's recession-proof, pandemic-proof, Amazon-proof, just a stable industry. Here's an example of that. 4 months ago, we had a pipe to our hot water heater start spraying water everywhere in our garage. Now, it didn't matter that I had no intention of spending $2,000 on a new hot water heater. Either I'm going to get it fixed or our garage was going to continue to flood water. It literally, our hot water heater was by the house in the very back end of the garage, and water was pouring all the way through to the front of the garage door. And then part of what makes this business unique is that they also offer cleaning. So they're also a cleaning company. And although the restoration space can be very lucrative, but sometimes you could be waiting a while to get paid from the insurance company or in between big jobs that might hit maybe once a month or every couple months. So the cleaning aspects of the business helps to build reoccurring revenue to help stabilize the revenue of the business, which is actually pretty interesting. Now, number 2 is that it's a growing industry. So restoration is a $210 billion residential industry and $80 billion commercial. And this space is growing 5% year over year. I mean, think about it. The more house, the more population, the more water challenges that we're gonna have. Number 3 is that it's third-party paid. In most cases, insurance is the one footing the bill for a lot of these water damage claims, especially the big ones. As an example, when we had that huge water damage in our house in California, it wound up being a $50,000 claim that our homeowner's insurance paid out. Well, after the deductible, of course. Number 4 is non-skilled labor. Basically, anyone with a good attitude and good with hands can do the work of the business. So the less complex a business is, the easier it is to find quality people and just get them trained up pretty quickly. The 5th is that it's a simple business and scalable. Look, you can start with 1 or 2 trucks and a couple of employees and just scale as it grows. Unlike when I opened my food franchises, I literally had to hire 15 employees right off the bat to make sure that we had enough people to cover all of the shifts. So number 6 is a high average ticket. The average restoration job size is about $2,800, which allows for more money to be spent on advertising to be able to acquire a customer. Number 7 is industry known for strong AUV, which in franchise speak means average unit sales, which in English means basically the business has strong sales. Now, because of the clarity and intentionality and all all of the preparation behind starting the business, Voda is growing very fast. In just the last year or so, they've sold 66 territories with 30 different franchise owners and already have 17 of those units open. And I was just texting with Dan, and over the next 8 weeks, they'll have the other 13 owners out of training and ready to launch. So usually with the franchise growing so fast, it worries me because most franchises don't have the back-end support and infrastructure lined up to be able to handle that growth. And then guess what happens? The franchisees wind up suffering. So I asked Dan,
can you just talk about like the commitment you made from just like a financial standpoint of building this business, putting in the infrastructure and the resources that you put in place to help franchisees be successful? Because this is not just something that you just kind of bootstrapped and threw together and you're trying to kind of build the plane while you're flying.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was, I've been in franchising for a decade. I've seen brands do well and not do well. And really the same reasons were consistent over the 10 years, which was they never had enough people ahead of time. When all of a sudden you're really busy, you need people, it's too late. A good franchise needs an operations leader, a marketing leader, a finance leader, a sales leader. And so we went ahead and we got that in place ahead of time, ahead of the curve, which, frankly isn't easy to do. I was fortunate to have sold a previous business, so I had, the capital, but we put that in place and we were burning several tens of thousands of dollars a month before ever having franchisees. But now at currently 51 territories and about 25 owners, we are able to continue to grow. We're not like an airplane shaking or at the wheel. We're able to handle that growth. And so what we're doing now is we're anticipating that future growth and even hiring more people. The trick is, it's easy once you start making money to want to go and live the high life. You have to stay kind of calm and reinvest into the business for the first 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, I just teleported back, so let's talk some numbers. If you didn't know, all franchises are actually required to have something called an FDD, which stands for Franchise Disclosure Document. And although it's typically a few hundred pages long, it has 2 main things in there that are really helpful for you, which is how much are other franchise owners making and how much would it cost you to start up one of these bad boys. Let's start with the startup cost. See what I did there? The total startup costs range from $146K to about $198K to get open. A big chunk of that goes to the franchise fee of $60K, which buys you the rights to own and operate a business using their trade secrets, logos, etc. The rest of it is pretty spread out to cover things like technology costs, grand opening advertising spend, wrapped vehicles, tools and equipment, and other industry-specific licenses and insurance. It also includes 3 months of additional business expenses to keep on the side for some padding. Okay, so now let's talk about how much money that you can make with this business. Again, the cool thing about franchises opposed to all these other get-rich-quick schemes out there is that they are regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So you can't just run around saying, hey, you can make millions of dollars with this business, without any actual proof that people are currently making millions of dollars with said business. Imagine that. So when we dive into their numbers, we're able to dive deep into the numbers of the corporate location that had been operating for nearly 15 years. In their 2023 FTD, they show average annual sales of $1.74 million with a 23% net profit margin. You're trying to do the math. Put your calculator down. I'll do it easily for you. That equates to just around $400,000 in profit. Now, the corporate unit does equate to about 3 territories, but still, I think most of us would be happy with the business doing $1.7 million in sales with a 23% profit margin, whether that's 1 territory or 3 territories. And here's what's interesting. Their average truck revenue is broken down to about $349K per truck. So all that means is that to do $1.7 million in sales, you'll need to have about 5 vehicles on the road out there working. So overall, I think it's a really interesting business, and Dan already has a successful track record with building up businesses and selling it. So a lot of times these businesses are driven by the leadership of the CEO. Now, just like your success in your business will largely depend on you. Now, if you want to learn more about owning a franchise with Voda, you can check out myvodafranchise.com. So recently I sat down with a guy who owns 8 furniture rent-to-own stores that show that they make about $840K per store. So you can check out that video here and learn more about the business and how it all works. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.